Got a few other questions that relate to being in a high yield account versus a term deposit versus superannuation. Stephen says, high interest savings or superannuation accounts, where should I put my excess cash? Now, if we think about it, most of these questions that Jennifer, Graham, Lindsay and Keith have asked can be answered in terms of steps in the priority. So if you've got surplus cash and you've got consumer debt, credit cards, car loans, personal loans, store cards, all those sorts of consumer debts, pay those first. Any surplus cash goes to those. If you've got surplus cash after that, save an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months living expenditure. So if you're spending $5,000 a month, then you need between $15,000 and $30,000 sitting in an account somewhere, potentially in a high yielding at-call account with no fees, but it's an emergency fund only used for emergencies. It buffers you from so much of what life throws at you. After that, if you've got that emergency fund, then you start saving for major purchases, and that might be for a new car, it might be start a business, education, or buying a home, a deposit for a home. Once you've saved for those major purchases, you've bought your home, pay off the home mortgage, then start to save for your retirement. So they're kind of steps in the process in terms of what you do with surplus funds. And so if you've got those first 4 steps covered off, then the 5th is save for your retirement. And often the best place to do that is the superannuation environment because it's concessionally taxed. And then you just got to decide which investment option within your superannuation fund is most suitable for you. So that's Stephen's questions. Keith asks, at 64 years of age, what is the best investment option for me? Super, bank deposit or online bank account? Similar sort of theme. Go through this process, work out where you are on that in those steps. If you've done all those things, then within the super environment is potentially the best thing for you if you're saving for your retirement. At 64, I guess you would be. Lindsay asks, am I in the right super fund investment category? Should I be putting more money into my super or paying off debt? Well, if you've still got debt, you should be focusing on that as a bit of a priority. But there's one change this financial year that would suggest that there is potentially the option to combine paying off the home mortgage and vamping up the super at the same time. Because the contribution limit, the amount at which you can put into superannuation concessionally, has gone down from $50,000 for somebody over 50 years of age to $25,000, there's more of a case to start putting more towards your superannuation because you can't put the $50,000 amounts. You can only put $25,000 amounts. Because of that change, some people might start to consider, rather than rapidly paying off the home mortgage, if they're approaching retirement, start to maximise their $25,000 contribution limit with salary sacrifice to superannuation. So there might be some dilemma there, but generally, as a standard statement across the board, pay off the debt first rather than focusing too much on super. Graham says, if you were retiring today, how would you invest your money across annuities, allocated pensions? Really good question, Graham. Annuities are becoming more popular. So an annuity is basically saying to a company, I've got a chunk of money. I'm going to give you that chunk of money and you're going to pay me guaranteed amount for the rest of my life or for a certain period of time. What you're doing is you're transferring any investment risk or some investment risk over to them to get a guaranteed level of return. Drawback of that kind of scenario is that I guess you pay for the privilege. You're paying some form of insurance to get that sort of service, that sort of product. Similarly, there is some risk around the life insurance company. If the life insurance company fails, they might have some insurer that might come in, but then you might effectively lose your money as well. There's more risk of the actual company that you're investing in. So generally, I've not been a big fan of annuities. If you've got a defined benefit pension through a government superannuation scheme, they're really good to combine those types of options with an accumulation scheme like Christian Super. But if you're going to give or hand over a chunk of money to buy an ongoing revenue stream, it might be suitable for some people that are very concerned about just getting a certain amount of money every year or every month. But generally, if I retired today, I would prefer to have more control over my funds and therefore have it in an allocated type pension than in an annuity. Depending on the structure of the annuity, if you took out a lifetime annuity and you died 2 years into that and it was worth $200,000, depending on the rules of the actual underlying product, you might not $10,000 or $20,000 from it, and then see nothing further from it. That's all you get from it, because the rules might have been within the fund that you forgo any capital should you die prior to that. You need to factor in those. I'm more of a fan of allocated pensions because of the control that you have, but they are suitable for some people, and there are a range of new products coming to the market. Jennifer asks, with ongoing poor performance and uncertainty of investments and super scheme, am I better off taking my money out of super and into the bank? Same sort of question as that previous page. Really need to think through the pros and cons of the structure that you're investing in. Potentially you should be just investing in term deposits within your superannuation fund, but if you've got a long time to invest, as we've talked about throughout the webinar, it is generally worthwhile to maintain some exposure to growth assets like shares and property.